Human was hired to find alien boss's wife, but had an affair with her. The tropical breeze caressed Jack Morgan's face as he stepped off the private shuttle onto the pristine white sand. Turquoise waters stretched to the horizon, framing the paradise-like alien island that would be his temporary home. At 42, the former Special Forces operative turned high-profile detective still maintained the robust physique and sharp instincts that had made him legendary in both careers. "Not a bad place for a manhunt," he muttered, adjusting his lightweight tactical vest over a fitted gray shirt that did little to conceal his muscular frame. A small delegation approached. 3 tall, imposing aliens with scaled skin in various shades of emerald. Their elongated limbs moved with surprising grace, despite their imposing height of nearly 8 feet. "Detective Morgan," the central figure spoke, his universal translator converting the series of clicks and whistles into English. "I am Krath Van, Chief of Security for Governor Thalax. His Excellency awaits you at the compound." Jack nodded curtly. "Let's not keep him waiting then." The governor's compound stood in stark contrast to the natural beauty surrounding it, a gleaming fortress of metal and composite materials perched on a cliff overlooking the sea. Security measures were evident everywhere, from the motion tracking turrets to the biometric scanners at every entrance. Governor Nilex Thalax was even taller than his security detail, his scales a deep midnight blue that seemed to absorb light. He sat behind an enormous desk carved from what appeared to be a single piece of rare alien wood. "Detective Morgan," the governor's voice rumbled through the translator, "your reputation precedes you. The Interstellar Detective Agency assured me you are the best at finding people who don't wish to be found." Jack remained standing, hands clasped behind his back. "That's what they pay me for, Governor. I understand your wife has gone missing." "Not missing," Thalax corrected sharply. "She has fled, taken resources that do not belong to her, and violated our marriage contract. I want her returned discreetly." Jack raised an eyebrow. "With all due respect, Governor, I'm not in the business of dragging unwilling spouses back to unhappy marriages." The governor's eyes, vertical slits of amber, narrowed dangerously. "You misunderstand, human. On Vexalia, marriage is not merely a union of hearts, but a binding legal contract with severe penalties for breach. My wife, Loria, knew this when she signed. Furthermore, she has taken something of great value that belongs to my family line." "And what might that be?" "That is not your concern," Thalax replied coldly. "Your concern is finding her and informing me of her location. My security team will handle the rest." Jack didn't like the sound of that, but the payment offered was substantial, enough to finally buy that cabin in the Colorado mountains he'd been eyeing for retirement. "I'll need everything you have on her. Travel records, financial transactions, friends, habits, favorite places." The governor gestured to Krath, who handed Jack a sleek data tablet. "Everything we know is there. She disabled her tracking implant, but we believe she remains on this island. It's isolated with limited transport options, and she lacks the connections to arrange unauthorized departure." Jack scrolled through the information, pausing at the image of Loria Thalax. Unlike her husband's reptilian appearance, she belonged to a different species entirely, humanoid with vibrant turquoise skin that seemed to shimmer with tiny star-like speckles. Her hair was pure white, flowing down her back like a waterfall of snow. The governor had married outside his species, which wasn't uncommon among the elite, but the contrast was striking. "Interesting match," Jack commented neutrally. "Political alliance," Thalax replied without emotion. "Her father is a trade minister on Australia. The union benefited both our worlds." "And how long has she been gone?" 17 standard days. "You have 1 week to locate her, detective. After that, I'll be forced to make her disappearance public, which would be unfortunate for all involved." Jack tucked the tablet into his vest. "I'll find her, but I work alone. No security detail following me around." The governor considered this, then nodded. "Agreed, but daily reports, detective. I'm not a patient man." As Jack left the compound, he couldn't shake the feeling that there was much more to this case than a runaway wife. The governor's cold demeanor and vague references to something of value set off warning bells in his mind. He spent the remainder of the day familiarizing himself with the island, studying maps, and reviewing Loria's personal data. The locals, a mix of native Vexalians and various other species, who had settled in this tourist paradise, were tight-lipped when he made casual inquiries. Either they knew nothing or they were protecting her. As dusk fell, Jack found himself drawn to a secluded beach on the far side of the island. According to the data, Loria had often visited this spot before her disappearance. The twin moons of Vexalia were rising, casting a silvery glow over the gentle waves. He was about to turn back when he spotted a figure emerging from the water, slender, graceful, and unmistakably turquoise-skinned. Jack stood motionless, mesmerized by the figure emerging from the water. The moonlight caressed her turquoise skin, making the star-like speckles shimmer with each movement. Loria Thalax was even more striking in person than in the governor's files, tall and graceful with an otherworldly beauty that made his breath catch. She wore a simple brown swimsuit that clung to her curves, accentuated by delicate golden bands around her upper arms. Her snow-white hair, now wet from the ocean, cascaded down her back as she wrung it out. Unaware of his presence, Jack stepped forward, intentionally crunching sand beneath his boot. No point in startling her. Loria whirled around, eyes wide with alarm, eyes that were a deep, iridescent purple. Recognition dawned on her face almost immediately. "Human," she said, her voice melodic even through the translator. "You're not from the resort." Her gaze traveled to his tactical vest, noting the subtle bulge of his sidearm. "You're him, aren't you? The hunter Nilex sent." Jack approached slowly, hands visible at his sides. "Detective Jack Morgan. And yes, your husband hired me to find you." To his surprise, she didn't run. Instead, she sighed and sat down on a smooth rock, gesturing for him to join her. "I've been expecting someone, though I admit I didn't think he'd send a human. Probably figured I'd have less sympathy for an alien runaway," Jack replied, remaining standing, but relaxing his posture. "And do you have sympathy?" Jack studied her face. Up close, he could see faint lines of exhaustion around her eyes. "That depends on why you ran." Loria looked out at the ocean, silent for a long moment. "Do you know what I supposedly stole, Detective Morgan?" The governor was vague on that point. A bitter laugh escaped her lips. "Of course he was." She turned to face him directly. "I stole myself, Detective. On Vexalia, marriage contracts for political unions include ownership clauses. I am legally his property, a living, breathing incubator for his bloodline." Jack frowned. "That's barbaric by human standards?" She finished. "Perhaps, but normal in our political circles. I mean, what isn't normal is what Nilex plans to do with our offspring." She stood suddenly, moving closer to Jack. The scent of the ocean clung to her skin, mixed with something exotic he couldn't identify. "My people, the Australians, have a natural ability to sense and manipulate energy fields. It's mild in most of us, just enough to feel emotions or heal minor wounds. But in rare cases, like mine, it's stronger." She held out her hand, and tiny sparks of blue energy danced between her fingers. "Nilex plans to breed this trait into his bloodline, then harvest it from our children for weapons development." Jack's stomach turned. "Harvest? You mean—" "The process would kill them, yes." Her voice broke slightly. "I discovered his research facility, saw the plans. I couldn't—" She shook her head. "I won't be the mother of children born to die." Jack ran a hand through his hair, conflict raging within him. The payment for this job would set him up for life. But this was wrong on every level. Why not go public? Surely there are laws. His family controls the judicial system on Vexalia, and my father's position would be compromised if I broke the contract. Thousands of my people rely on that trade agreement for medical supplies." She stepped closer, her eyes searching his. "What will you do now, Detective Morgan?" Jack was acutely aware of her proximity, of the strange electricity that seemed to flow between them. Whether it was her natural abilities or something else entirely, he couldn't tell. "I need to think," he said finally. Loria nodded, then reached out hesitantly, her fingers brushing his arm. The contact sent a warm current through his body. "I sense conflict in you. Strong principles fighting against duty?" "Occupational hazard," he muttered, finding it difficult to maintain his professional detachment. There was something about her, vulnerability mixed with strength, that resonated with him. "I'll be here tomorrow night," she said softly. If you decide to take me back to him, I won't run. But I hope you'll listen to the rest of my story first." Before he could respond, she leaned forward and pressed her lips to his cheek. The touch was brief, but left his skin tingling with that same strange energy. "Humans are fascinating creatures," she whispered, "so driven by your hearts, even when your minds say otherwise." With that, she gathered a simple robe from the rocks and slipped it over her shoulders and walked away along the shoreline, disappearing into the night. Jack stood rooted to the spot, his hand unconsciously touching the place where her lips had been. In all his years of tracking fugitives across the galaxy, he'd never encountered anyone like Loria. The governor's cold description hadn't prepared him for her intelligence, her courage, or the inexplicable pull he felt toward her. He should report his findings immediately. That was the job. That was what he was being paid an obscene amount of money to do. Instead, he found himself walking back to his rented bungalow, the decision already forming in his mind to meet her the following night, to hear her out, to understand, and perhaps to explore the unexpected connection that had sparked between them. A connection that felt dangerous, forbidden, and more alive than anything he'd experienced in years. Jack spent the day crafting his deception. He sent a carefully worded report to Governor Thalax, claiming he'd found evidence suggesting Loria had left the island on a cargo freighter bound for the Outer Rim territories. The lie would buy them time, perhaps a week before Thalax realized the trail was false. As dusk approached, anticipation coursed through him. He told himself it was just the thrill of defying authority, of doing what was right instead of what was profitable. But he knew there was more to it. The memory of Loria's touch lingered on his skin like a pleasant burn. The beach was empty when he arrived, bathed in the amber glow of sunset. Jack found a secluded spot among the rocks and waited, wondering if she would come at all. Perhaps she'd sensed his intentions and fled. "You came!" Her voice behind him made him turn. Loria stood there, silhouetted against the darkening sky, wearing a flowing dress of deep blue that complemented her turquoise skin. Her white hair was braided with tiny shells that caught the fading light. "I did," he replied simply. She approached, her movements fluid and graceful. "And have you decided my fate, Detective Morgan?" "Jack," he corrected. "And yes, I told your husband you left the planet on a cargo ship." Her eyes widened, those remarkable purple irises catching the last rays of sunlight. "You lied for me." "Why?" Jack shrugged, trying to appear more casual than he felt. "Let's just say I don't support breeding programs that treat children like weapons components." Loria's smile was radiant with relief. She sat beside him on the warm sand, close enough that he could feel the strange energy that seemed to emanate from her skin. "Thank you," she whispered. "Though you've likely made a powerful enemy." "Wouldn't be my first," Jack turned to face her. "But we need a better plan than just hiding. Thalax will figure out I lied eventually." "I've been gathering evidence," she said, producing a small data crystal from a hidden pocket. "Records of the research facility, genetic manipulation protocols, everything. But I need to get it to someone who can act on it. Someone beyond Thalax's influence." Their fingers brushed as she handed him the crystal, and that now familiar current passed between them. Jack noticed her slight intake of breath, the way her eyes lingered on his face. "Is that normal?" he asked, gesturing to the space between them where the energy seemed to pulse. "This feeling when we touch?" Loria's cheeks darkened to a deeper blue. A blush, he realized. "No," she admitted. "My people can sense emotions, but this, connection is unusual. Your energy signature is remarkably compatible with mine. It's rare even among my own kind." "And what does that mean exactly?" She moved closer, her eyes never leaving his. "It means I can feel what you feel, your determination, your sense of justice." Her voice lowered. "Your attraction." The directness caught him off guard. Humans danced around such things, but her alien frankness was refreshing. "Is that uncomfortable for you?" he asked. "Quite the opposite." Her hand found his, fingers intertwining. "Humans fascinate me. You feel everything so intensely, without restraint. My people consider such openness primitive, but I find it liberating." The air between them seemed to thicken with possibility. Jack was acutely aware of her proximity, of the subtle scent that reminded him of thunderstorms and exotic spices. "And what am I feeling right now?" he challenged softly. Instead of answering, Loria leaned forward and pressed her lips to his. The contact was electric, sending waves of pleasure cascading through his body. Her mouth was cooler than a human's, but the sensation was intoxicating. When they finally parted, both breathing heavily, Jack found himself at a loss for words. "That was, he began. "Different," she suggested, a hint of vulnerability in her eyes. "Incredible," he corrected. What followed was a night unlike any Jack had experienced. They talked for hours about their worlds, their lives, their differences, and surprising similarities. And between conversations, they explored this unexpected connection with increasing intimacy. Her skin against his created sensations that transcended the physical, as if their very essences were intermingling. In the aftermath, they lay together on the sand beneath a blanket of stars, her head resting on his chest. "In my culture," Loria murmured, tracing patterns on his skin, "what we just shared would form a bond considered more sacred than any political marriage contract." Jack tightened his arm around her. "On Earth, we just call it making love." She smiled against his chest, a simple phrase for something not simple at all. The practical reality of their situation gradually reasserted itself. Jack sat up, his mind turning to their precarious position. "I have contacts in the Galactic Security Council," he said. "People who owe me favors. If your evidence is solid, they could launch an investigation into Thalak's research." Loria nodded, her expression growing serious. "It would mean exposing my father's complicity as well. The trade agreement was his idea. He knew what Thalak wanted from me." "Are you prepared for that?" She was quiet for a moment, then met his gaze with determination. "Yes. No political alliance is worth the lives of innocent children." Jack admired her courage. She was risking everything, her status, her family connections, perhaps even her life, to do what was right. "We'll need to move quickly," he said. "My lie won't hold Thalak off forever." As if summoned by his words, a distant hum broke the night silence, the sound of approaching aircraft. Jack tensed at the approaching aircraft, reaching instinctively for his sidearm. "We need to move, now!" To his surprise, Loria placed a calming hand on his arm. "Wait, that's not Thalak's security." She closed her eyes, her expression shifting to one of concentration. "It's the Moros brothers." "Who?" "Smugglers. I contacted them before you found me. A contingency plan." She stood, gathering her scattered belongings. "They specialize in helping people disappear." Jack watched the approaching lights, skepticism evident on his face. "Smugglers aren't known for their reliability. These ones are different. They're Tralaxians. Their species holds honor debts as sacred. I once helped their sister escape an Imperial labor camp." She extended her hand to him. "This is our chance, Jack." The aircraft, a battered but well-maintained cargo shuttle, descended onto the beach 50 meters away, kicking up swirls of sand. Its engines hummed with a distinctive purr that spoke of expensive modifications beneath the deliberately shabby exterior. The loading ramp descended, revealing two identical aliens with mottled green skin and 4 arms each. They wore matching leather flight jackets adorned with patches from a dozen worlds. "Lady Loria," the first one called out, all 4 hands moving in elaborate gestures that Jack's translator couldn't interpret. "The window is brief. Orbital patrols change in 20 minutes. Loria squeezed Jack's hand. "This is it. I'm leaving." The weight of the moment hit Jack like a physical blow. This wasn't just about helping Loria escape. This was about choosing between the life he'd built and something entirely unknown. "Come with me," she said, her purple eyes reflecting the shuttle's lights. "We can expose Thalak together." "I'd be giving up everything," he replied, though even as he said it, he realized everything suddenly seemed less significant than it had 3 days ago. "What's a human detective's retirement fund compared to saving innocent lives?" she challenged, a hint of teasing in her voice, despite the gravity of their situation. Jack laughed despite himself. "When you put it that way." One of the Moros brothers approached, his 4 arms moving impatiently. "Decide quickly, human. Planetary security has increased patrols since the governor's wife disappeared. He glanced at Loria. Your husband is not taking your absence well. That settled it. Jack nodded, firmly. I'm coming. Relief flooded Loria's face. She pressed her forehead against his in what he recognized as an Australian gesture of deep affection. They boarded quickly, the brothers securing the cargo bay as the shuttle lifted off. The interior was surprisingly comfortable, clearly designed for transporting passengers as well as goods. Jack noticed hidden weapon mounts and reinforced hull plating. These weren't just smugglers. They were prepared for serious resistance. Where are we headed? Jack asked as they strapped into acceleration couches. The brother at the controls, Doran or Karayan, Jack wasn't sure which, flashed a toothy grin. First stop, nowhere. We'll make 3 jumps through uninhabited systems to shake any pursuit, then to Nexus Station in the neutral zone. Perfect, Loria said. The Galactic Security Council has an outpost there. The shuttle accelerated sharply, pushing them back into their seats. Through a small viewport, Jack watched the Paradise Islands shrink beneath them, then disappear altogether as they broke atmosphere. Having second thoughts? Loria asked softly, noticing his expression. No, he replied honestly. Just thinking about how quickly life can change. 3 days ago, I was planning my retirement. Now I'm a fugitive with an alien princess, running from her warlord husband. I'm not actually a princess, she corrected with a smile, though the warlord part is accurate enough. The shuttle shuddered as it accelerated to jump velocity. Stars outside the viewport stretched into lines, then vanished as they entered hyperspace. One of the brothers, the one not piloting, approached with 2 glasses of amber liquid. Celebration is traditional for new passengers, he explained, handing them each a drink. To freedom and new beginnings. Jack raised his glass, clinking it against Loria's. The liquid burned pleasantly going down, leaving a taste of cinnamon and something exotic. When the brother returned to the cockpit, Loria moved to sit beside Jack, her body fitting perfectly against his. The events of the past days had created an intimacy between them that defied their short acquaintance. I've never met anyone like you, she murmured, tracing the line of his jaw with cool fingers. Humans have a reputation for being impulsive, but also for their loyalty and courage. You embody those traits perfectly. Is that how aliens see us? Impulsive but loyal? She laughed softly. That and your remarkable adaptability. Most species would be traumatized by the pace of change on Earth. Humans not only survive it, you thrive on it. Jack considered this. I never thought of it that way. We just do what needs doing. Exactly, she said, her eyes shining with admiration. That practicality combined with your capacity for compassion makes humans unique in the galaxy. You follow your hearts without hesitation, yet remain grounded in reality. The shuttle hummed around them, its rhythmic vibrations creating a cocoon of privacy despite the brothers' presence in the cockpit. Jack found himself drawn again to Loria, their earlier intimacy having only intensified his desire rather than sated it. She sensed his thoughts. Literally, he realized and smiled. The energy between compatible Australians grows stronger with each connection, she explained, her voice low and enticing. It's why our bondings are considered sacred. Each time deepens the link. Is that what's happening with us? He asked, suddenly understanding the increasing intensity of his feelings. Something similar, though cross-species bonds are rare. Her fingers traced patterns on his chest, sending shivers through him. Does that concern you? Jack captured her hand, bringing it to his lips. Nothing about you concerns me, surprises me, fascinates me, drives me crazy in the best possible way, but never concerns. Her laughter was like music. Such a human response. So direct, so honest. Would you prefer I be more mysterious? Never, she whispered, leaning in to kiss him. Your humanity is precisely what I adore. As the shuttle carried them deeper into space, away from pursuit and toward an uncertain future, Jack surrendered to the connection between them, a bond that transcended species and defied explanation. Whatever challenges awaited them, they would face them together. The shuttle lurched violently, throwing Jack against his restraints. Alarms blared throughout the cabin. What the hell? He shouted toward the cockpit. Doran, Jack had finally learned to distinguish between the brothers, swiveled in his pilot's chair. Military-grade vessel on our tail. Unmarked, but the energy signature matches Vexalian design. Thalax, Loria whispered, her skin paling to a lighter shade of turquoise. He shouldn't have ships operating this far outside his jurisdiction. Wealthy tyrants rarely respect boundaries, Jack replied, unbuckling to move toward the cockpit. What are our options? Karan, the more taciturn brother, pointed to a holographic display showing their position relative to a dense asteroid field. We can try to lose them in there. That's suicide, Loria protested. Not necessarily. Jack studied the display, military training kicking in. These asteroids follow predictable orbital patterns. If we time it right, we can use them as cover while our pursuer has to waste time calculating safe passages. The brothers exchanged glances. The human is correct, Doran said, but our navigation systems aren't designed for that kind of precision flying. Mine were, Jack replied. I flew scout ships through the Ceres belt during the Martian conflict. Let me take the controls. Another blast rocked the shuttle. The pursuer had opened fire. Shields at 60%, Karan reported. We don't have time to debate. Doran vacated the pilot's seat. It's yours, human. Don't kill us. Jack slid into position, familiarizing himself with the alien controls. Different configuration, but the principles were universal. He engaged the manual override and gripped the steering yoke. Everybody strap in, he ordered. This is going to get rough. The shuttle plunged into the asteroid field, narrowly missing a house-sized rock. Jack's hands moved with practiced precision, threading their vessel through gaps that seemed impossibly small. Behind them, their pursuer hesitated at the field's edge. They're scanning for a safe route, Jack explained, executing a tight roll between two converging asteroids. By the time they plot a course, we'll be… The scanner beeped. They're coming in, Karan interrupted, and they've launched proximity mines. Clever bastards, Jack muttered. He pushed the engines harder, feeling the shuttle strain against its limits. Loria, can you use your energy manipulation to help us? She moved beside him, placing her hands on the console. I can try to create a disruptive field around the mines, but I've never attempted it at this scale. Blue energy flowed from her fingertips into the ship's systems. The scanner showed the mines detonating prematurely behind them, creating a chain reaction that temporarily blocked their pursuer's path. That bought us time, Jack said, impressed. Now for the tricky part. He navigated toward a particularly dense cluster of asteroids, then cut the main engines. Using only maneuvering thrusters, he guided them into a narrow crevice in one of the larger rocks. Power down everything except life support, he instructed. They'll have trouble detecting us if we're running silent. Minutes stretched into an hour as they drifted, hidden in the asteroid's shadow. Eventually, Karan's scanner showed their pursuer, giving up the search and departing. Impressive flying, human, Doran said, genuine respect in his voice. Most species would have panicked. Humans thrive under pressure, Loria explained proudly. Their adrenal response enhances performance rather than diminishing it. Jack relinquished the controls back to Doran. We're not out of trouble yet. Thalax knows we're heading for Nexus Station. We received a transmission during the pursuit, Karan admitted. Thalax has placed bounties on both your heads. 10 million credits each, alive only. That's enough to tempt every mercenary in the sector, Jack said grimly. Loria's expression hardened. We need to change our plan. I might have an alternative, Jack pulled out his personal communicator. I served with a guy who now runs security operations for the Orion Mining Consortium. They have a major presence on Nexus Station and no love for Vexalian politics. Human connections, Doran observed, always so personal, so based on shared experiences rather than formal alliances. It's how we survive, Jack replied, typing a coded message. We build networks based on trust. They resumed their journey toward Nexus Station, taking a more circuitous route to avoid detection. The close call had left them all on edge, but it had also cemented something between Jack and Loria. In the quiet moments between jump points, they found themselves drawn together, their earlier intimacy deepening into something that transcended physical attraction. I've never seen anyone fly like that, she told him as they lay together in the small sleeping quarters. You weren't just reacting, you were anticipating, almost like you could feel the asteroid's movements. Jack traced the star-like speckles on her shoulder. Humans call it being in the zone. When instinct takes over and everything slows down, becomes clearer. My people spend years training to achieve similar mental states through meditation, she marveled. You just do it naturally under threat. Evolutionary advantage of coming from a predator species on a dangerous planet, he explained. We're wired to perform when it matters most. Her fingers explored the scars on his chest, souvenirs from his military days. Your fragility makes your courage all the more remarkable. My skin can withstand temperatures and pressures that would kill you instantly, yet you face those asteroids without hesitation. Are you calling me delicate? He teased. Deliciously so, she replied, pressing her cooler lips to his neck. It makes protecting you all the more meaningful. Jack laughed. I think I was the one doing the protecting back there. We protected each other, she corrected, as equals. That's something Thalax could never understand. Partnership instead of ownership. The mention of her husband sobered them both. Whatever was growing between them existed in the shadow of genuine danger. We'll reach Nexus Station in 6 hours, Jack said. If my contact comes through, we'll have allies waiting. If not, then we'll adapt, she finished. Like humans always do. Nexus Station loomed before them, a massive artificial construct spinning slowly against the backdrop of a pale blue nebula. Its central hub branched into 5 enormous spokes, each housing different sectors: commerce, residential, industrial, diplomatic, and military. The station served as a neutral meeting ground for dozens of species, governed by the Interstellar Commerce Guild rather than any single planetary authority. Docking control is requesting identification, Karan announced as they approached. Jack leaned over the communications array. Transmit clearance code Echo 7 Tango 9. Tell them we're carrying mining equipment parts for Orion Consortium. The response came almost immediately. Clearance granted. Proceed to Docking Bay 47 Industrial Sector. Loria raised an eyebrow. Your contact came through. Dylan always was reliable in a pinch, Jack replied with a grim smile. Saved my ass more than once during the Proxima campaign. The Moros brothers guided their shuttle into the designated bay, which appeared to be a standard cargo receiving area. As the engines powered down, Jack noticed something unusual. The bay was empty of the typical loading crews and automated cargo handlers. Stay alert, he murmured to Loria. This could still be a trap. The airlock cycled open, and 4 humans in Orion Mining Consortium uniforms entered the shuttle. The leader, a weathered man with salt and pepper hair and a cybernetic left eye, broke into a wide grin at the sight of Jack. Morgan, you magnificent bastard. Still finding trouble in all the wrong places? Jack relaxed visibly. Dylan, thanks for the assist. They clasped forearms in a soldier's greeting. Dylan turned his attention to Loria, giving her a respectful nod rather than staring at her exotic appearance. Ma'am, Commander Dylan Marrow, head of security for Orion's operations on Nexus. He gestured to his team. This is my extraction squad. We need to move quickly. The station's crawling with bounty hunters. One of the female operatives stepped forward with bundles of clothing. Disguises. The consortium uniforms will get you through most security checkpoints. As they changed, Dylan briefed them on the situation. Thalax has friends on the station's governing council. They haven't officially sanctioned his bounty, but they're turning a blind eye. We've secured a safe house in the residential sector and arranged a secure channel to the Galactic Security Council representative. How bad is it out there? Jack asked, adjusting the mining company cap to partially obscure his face. 20 confirmed bounty hunters, probably twice that number we haven't identified yet. Dylan handed Jack a compact blaster. Non-lethal, but it'll put someone down hard. Station regulations. Loria, now dressed in a technician's jumpsuit with her distinctive white hair hidden beneath a cap, examined a station map on a portable display. The diplomatic sector would be the safest place to transmit our evidence. And the most heavily monitored, Dylan countered. We've got a better option, an old communications relay in maintenance sub-level C. It's officially decommissioned, but my team keeps it operational for emergencies. They exited the shuttle information, Dylan and a female operative in front, Jack and Loria in the middle, the remaining 2 operatives bringing up the rear. The Morris brothers would remain with their vessel, ready for a quick departure if necessary. The industrial sector was a maze of warehouses, fabrication plants, and shipping containers. Workers of various species barely glanced at them as they passed. Another mining company crew going about their business. "First checkpoint ahead," Dylan murmured. "Act natural." Two security officers, a hulking reptilian draconian and a four-armed quarian, manned the transition point between sectors. They scanned the group's identification badges with board efficiency. "Purpose in residential sector?" the draconian asked. "Equipment maintenance at residential hub cooling station," Dylan replied smoothly. "Scheduled downtime." The guard nodded and waved them through. Jack felt Loria's tension ease slightly beside him. "That was too easy," she whispered once they were past. "Consortium has legitimate business in all sectors," Dylan explained. "We're just another maintenance crew to them." They were halfway across the residential sector when Dylan suddenly changed direction, guiding them into a crowded marketplace. "Don't react," he said under his breath, "but we picked up a tail. Bounty hunter. Sigarian by the look of him." Jack resisted the urge to look back. Sigarians were notorious trackers with enhanced olfactory senses. He can probably smell Loria's pheromones. Her species has a distinctive scent. "Split up," Dylan decided. "Rena, take our guests through the service corridors to the safe house. We'll create a diversion." The female operative nodded and gestured for Jack and Loria to follow her toward a maintenance access door. As they slipped away, Jack heard a commotion erupting behind them, Dylan and his team creating the promised diversion. Rena led them through a labyrinth of service tunnels, eventually emerging in a quiet residential block of modular housing units. She ushered them into one that appeared identical to its neighbors. "Home sweet home," she said, securing the door behind them. "It's not much, but it's off the official registry and shielded from scans." The apartment was small but functional, a main living area with basic furnishings, a tiny kitchen, and a single bedroom. Surveillance monitors showed the corridor outside and the approaching intersections. "Dylan will join us once he's sure you weren't followed," Rena explained, checking her weapon. "The comm relay will be ready in 6 hours when the station's security protocols run their automated reset." "Thank you," Loria said sincerely. "Few would risk so much for strangers." Rena smiled. "Jack's not a stranger. He saved Dylan's entire squad on Proxima 4. Besides, humans stick together out here. We're still newcomers to the galactic community. Gotta watch each other's backs." When Rena stepped into the kitchen to prepare food, Loria turned to Jack with wonder in her eyes. "The loyalty you inspire," she marveled quietly. "Is this typical of humans?" Jack shrugged. "We form strong bonds, especially through shared hardship. Dylan would do the same for any of his old unit. My people form political alliances, trade partnerships, even mating contracts," she said. "But this kind of personal loyalty based on past experiences?" She shook her head. "It's beautiful." Jack took her hand, feeling that now familiar energy flowing between them. "When this is over, I want to show you Earth. It's messy and chaotic compared to most civilized worlds, but there's a vibrancy to it I think you'd appreciate." Her eyes lit up. "I'd like that very much." The moment was interrupted by a chime from the surveillance system. Dylan had arrived, looking slightly disheveled but triumphant. "Lost our tail," he announced, "but the station's on high alert. Thalax just doubled the bounty." "Thalax is here?" Loria's voice was barely above a whisper, her skin paling to a lighter shade of turquoise. "On the station?" Dylan nodded grimly. "Docked 20 minutes ago in the diplomatic sector with 3 security vessels. He's claiming diplomatic immunity while conducting a personal matter." "That's not all," Rena added, checking a notification on her wrist device. "Station security just announced a sector-wide lifeform scan, starting in 30 minutes. Standard procedure when a dignitary reports security concerns." Jack cursed under his breath. "They'll find us. This safe house may be off the registry, but it can't hide biological signatures." "We need to move up our timeline," Dylan decided. "The security reset is still 5 hours away, but we can't wait." "The old relay station?" Jack asked. "Too risky now. Thalax's people will be watching all communication hubs." Dylan paced the small room. "We need a new approach." Jack's mind raced through options. "What about the station's emergency broadcast system? If we could hijack it, we could transmit the evidence to everyone on the station simultaneously." including the Galactic Security Council representatives. Dylan raised an eyebrow. Ambitious. The main control node is in the central hub, heavily guarded. But there is a secondary node in the Environmental Control Center, Rena interjected. It's designed for station-wide alerts during life support emergencies. Can we access it? With the right credentials. She tapped her consortium badge, which I happen to have. Orion maintains the atmospheric processors in that sector. Jack turned to Loria. This is your call. It's riskier than our original plan. She straightened her shoulders, determination replacing fear in her eyes. If Thalax is here personally, it means he's desperate. We won't get another chance. Then we move now, Dylan ordered. Rena, take point. I'll coordinate with my other operatives to create diversions across the station. As they prepared to leave, Jack pulled Loria aside into the small bedroom for a moment of privacy. Are you sure about this? He asked softly. Once we broadcast that evidence, there's no going back. Your people, your father, they'll all know what you've done. Loria placed her cool palm against his cheek. I made my choice the moment I fled. But now I'm not just running from something, I'm running towards something too. Her eyes held his with an intensity that made his breath catch. Toward you. The admission hung between them, charged with possibility. In the midst of danger, with time running short, Jack found himself overwhelmed by the depth of his feelings for this remarkable being from another world. When I took this job, he said, his voice rough with emotion, I never imagined I'd end up falling for the woman I was hired to find. Is that what this is? She asked, a hint of vulnerability beneath her question. Falling? Jack answered by pulling her close, their bodies fitting together perfectly despite their different biologies. The kiss they shared was electric, that unique energy flowing between them more powerful than ever. If we survive this, he murmured against her lips, I want to explore whatever this is between us, properly, no running, no hiding. I would like that very much, she whispered back. Human courtship rituals intrigue me. He laughed softly. Is that what you call it? What would you call it? Dating, falling in love, building a life together. The words surprised him even as he said them, but they felt right. A sharp knock interrupted them. Time to move, Dylan called through the door. Reality reasserted itself. They rejoined the others, now focused on the mission ahead. The plan was simple but dangerous. Use the service corridors to reach the Environmental Control Center, transmit the evidence through the emergency broadcast system, then rendezvous with the Morris brothers for immediate evacuation before Thalax's forces could respond. They moved through the station's maintenance tunnels in tense silence, encountering only occasional service droids that paid them no attention. Jack kept close to Loria, hyper-aware of every sound, every potential threat. Lifeform scan has begun in Residential Sector B, Rena reported, checking her device. We have about 15 minutes before it reaches our position. They quickened their pace, emerging into a utility junction where 4 corridors met. Dylan held up his hand, signaling them to stop. Security patrol ahead, he whispered, checking a small scanner. 2 officers. Before they could retreat, a station-wide announcement echoed through the corridors. Attention all personnel and visitors. By order of Governor Nilex Thalax of Exalia, all security checkpoints are now conducting enhanced identity verification. Report any suspicious individuals immediately. He's tightening the net, Jack muttered. Dylan made a quick decision. New route. We'll go through the commercial sector, more crowded, easier to blend in. They changed direction, ascending through an access ladder to the bustling marketplace of the commercial district. Hundreds of beings from dozens of species moved through the colorful stalls and shops, creating a chaotic environment perfect for concealment, or so they thought. Jack? Loria suddenly gripped his arm, her eyes wide. He's here. Following her gaze, Jack spotted him, Governor Thalax himself, flanked by 4 reptilian security officers, moving through the crowd with purposeful strides. His midnight blue scales seemed to absorb the light around him, creating an aura of darkness that made other shoppers instinctively move aside. He can sense me, Loria whispered, genuine fear in her voice. The bond from our marriage contract, it creates a psychic link. That's how he tracked me to the station. Jack pulled her behind a vendor's stall. Dylan, change of plans. You and Rena get to the environmental controls. We'll create a diversion. That's suicide, Dylan protested. He's tracking Loria, not the evidence. If we lead him away, you'll have a clear path. Jack's tone left no room for argument. We'll meet you at the shuttle. Dylan hesitated, then nodded sharply. Don't be late. As their allies slipped away through the crowd, Jack turned to Loria. Ready to face your husband one last time? Her eyes met his, fear giving way to resolve. With you beside me? Absolutely. I have a plan, Jack whispered, pulling Loria toward a central plaza where dozens of species gathered around a holographic news display. But it's bold. Bold seems appropriate, she replied, her eyes never leaving the imposing figure of Thalax moving through the crowd. Jack's mind raced through tactical possibilities. The marriage contract, it's legally binding, right? With specific terms? Yes, filed with the Interstellar Registry. Breaking it requires formal proceedings. Perfect. Jack's expression hardened with determination. We're going to give him exactly what he wants, you in public, but on our terms. Understanding dawned in Loria's eyes. A public confrontation where he can't use force without violating station law. Jack checked his communicator. Dylan needs 7 minutes to reach the environmental controls. They positioned themselves in the center of the plaza, deliberately exposed. Jack removed his disguise cap, standing tall beside Loria, who let her distinctive white hair flow free from its concealment. It took less than 30 seconds for Thalax to spot them. The governor froze, his amber eyes narrowing to slits. The crowd instinctively parted as he approached, his security detail forming a perimeter. My wife, Thalax's voice carried across the plaza, silencing nearby conversations. And her human companion. How convenient to find you both. Jack stepped forward, placing himself slightly in front of Loria. Governor Thalax, I believe we have unfinished business. Indeed. Thalax's gaze was glacial. You failed to complete the task for which you were hired, Detective Morgan. Instead, you chose to steal my property. The word property rippled through the gathering crowd. Several beings looked uncomfortable. Ownership of sentient species was technically forbidden in most civilized systems. I'm not your property, Loria's voice rang clear and strong. I am a citizen of Australia, and I formally invoke Article 7 of the Interstellar Rights Accord, the right to public hearing of grievances. Murmurs spread through the onlookers. Article 7 was a rarely used but powerful protection that allowed any being to publicly state their case when claiming rights violations. Station security could not interfere with such a declaration. Thalax's scales darkened with rage, but he was trapped by protocol. This is a private matter between husband and wife. Not when it involves illegal genetic experimentation, Jack countered loudly, ensuring the crowd heard every word. Not when it involves harvesting abilities from children. The murmurs grew louder. Several beings activated recording devices. Baseless accusations, Thalax hissed, but Jack noticed his security detail exchanging uneasy glances. Loria stepped forward, her turquoise skin luminous under the plaza lights. I have evidence of a breeding program designed to create children with enhanced energy manipulation abilities. Children who would be harvested for weapons development. Lies, Thalax roared, his composure cracking. You have nothing. Jack checked his communicator. 4 minutes until Dylan reached position. They needed to keep Thalax engaged. Show them, Jack urged Loria. Show them what you can do. Understanding his strategy, Loria raised her hands. Blue energy danced between her fingers, growing into a swirling pattern above her palms. The crowd gasped collectively. This ability occurs naturally in my species, she explained. Thalax planned to enhance it through selective breeding, then extract it from our offspring, a process that would kill them. Horror spread through the onlookers. Even in a galaxy of diverse moral codes, experimentation on children was universally condemned. Thalax's security detail shifted uncomfortably. One of them, the youngest, actually stepped back from his employer. Enough of this spectacle, Thalax snarled. He gestured to his remaining guards. Seize them both. I wouldn't, Jack warned. his hand hovering near his concealed blaster. Station regulations prohibit use of force during an Article 7 declaration. Your diplomatic immunity doesn't extend to violating that. The standoff stretched taut as a wire. Jack could see Thalax calculating his options, realizing he was losing control of the situation. The crowd had grown larger, with station residents of all species watching intently. 2 minutes left. The marriage contract itself is evidence, Loria continued, addressing the crowd directly. Section 12 specifically grants him ownership rights to any offspring with enhanced abilities for research purposes. It's coded in legal language, but the intent is clear. A tall insectoid being stepped forward from the crowd. Jack recognized the distinctive markings of a judicial observer, a neutral legal witness recognized throughout the galaxy. I would examine this contract, the observer stated formally. Thalax's composure finally shattered. This is absurd. She is my wife, bound by contract to... The station's emergency broadcast system suddenly blared to life, interrupting him. Every screen in the plaza switched to display the same images. Thalax's research facility, genetic modification protocols, breeding projections, extraction procedures. Dylan had succeeded. This evidence is being simultaneously transmitted to the Galactic Security Council, all member worlds, and major news networks, announced a computerized voice. Governor Nilex Thalax of Vexalia is hereby accused of violations against the Sentient Rights Charter, Articles 3, 7, and 12. The crowd erupted in shocked exclamations. Station security officers began pushing through toward Thalax, whose guards now looked openly uncertain. You've ruined everything, Thalax hissed at Loria, his controlled facade completely gone. In a lightning-fast move, he lunged toward her, clawed hand extended. Jack reacted with the honed reflexes of his military training, intercepting the governor with a precision strike to his solar plexus, or where a human's would be. Thalax doubled over, gasping. That, Jack said calmly, was assault witnessed by approximately 200 people, including a judicial observer. Your diplomatic immunity is officially revoked. Station security surrounded them, separating Thalax from his guards. The observer approached, mandibles clicking as it addressed Loria. The contract is indeed void under interstellar law. No sentient being can be bound to terms permitting harm to offspring. The next hour passed in a blur of statements, recordings, and official proceedings. Thalax was taken into custody, pending extradition to face charges before the Galactic Security Council. His security detail, eager to distance themselves from his crimes, offered no resistance. Dylan and Rena found them outside the security office, grinning with triumph. Broadcast reached every corner of the galaxy, Dylan reported. The Council's already issued preliminary sanctions against Vexalia pending investigation. And your father has released a statement denouncing Thalax in the contract, Rena told Loria. Politically convenient, but it means you won't face charges on Australia. Jack felt a weight lift from his shoulders. So we're free to go? More than that, Dylan laughed. You're heroes. The station administrator wants to thank you personally. Later aboard the Moros brothers' shuttle preparing for departure, Jack and Loria finally had a moment alone. Through the viewport, Nexus Station gleamed against the nebula backdrop. Where to now? Doran called from the cockpit. Jack looked at Loria, taking her hand in his. Earth, he replied without hesitation. I promised to show someone my homeworld. Loria's smile was radiant, and I hear humans have fascinating courtship rituals. The best in the galaxy, Jack assured her, pulling her close, and I plan to demonstrate every single one. As the shuttle pulled away from the station, Jack reflected on how dramatically his life had changed in less than a week. He'd been hired to find a runaway wife, only to discover something far more precious. A partner who challenged him, fascinated him, and made him feel more alive than he had in years. You know, he murmured against her hair, I never did collect my fee for finding you. Loria laughed, the sound like music. I believe you found something much more valuable instead. Without question, he agreed, sealing the sentiment with a kiss as the stars stretched into streaks of light around them, carrying them toward a future neither could have imagined when they first met on that tropical beach.